Bryant watched out the view window as Grenada split into two, each squad heading towards different jump points. He felt the customary shudder in the deck below his feet as the Columbia began to move. There was the familiar lurch as they crossed their FTL threshold. Then, just as suddenly, they exited the vortex directly in the path of a small fleet of vessels. George had never seen these designs before. Most were relatively saucer-shaped. A couple had the form of large cigars. Still others were orbs. He wasn't sure whether or not they had fewer decks or the inhabitants were very small, but the crafts were very slim and sleek. Each saucer was about 175 meters in diameter. From the keel to top deck plating, they were no more than 30 meters in height. If the intruders were similar to humans in size, these vessels can only be 2 or 3 decks in height, suggesting a relatively small crew. The Columbia rocked a little as vibrations from a kind of thunder rolled through her interior. She had taken weapons fire the moment they exited the jump. Bryant observed the launch of about 80 fighters from her sides in a period of about 5 minutes. It was obvious Grace was holding a reasonable reserve force still, and he was proud that they could launch 2 fighter craft every 7.5 seconds. Bolts of particle charges whizzed through space as the two forces exchanged fire. The Columbia and her heavy cruiser fired deadly salvos of spears from their railguns. As he scanned the space around them, Bryant could see the Columbia Group's light squad off to their port side, and observed a large portion of the interlopers' formation breaking from their main flotilla to head for it. 50 Columbia Raptor-class fighters intervened, while 30 remained on stations with the original body. As the Columbia Group took continuous blows from the intruders, he noted that Grace was still hitting the 2 assemblages with streams of continuous weapons fire from the carrier's vast arsenal. Her many cannon placements were aimed at numerous targets on multiple enemy ships, as were those of her accompanying cruiser and frigates. Suddenly, the 2 Grenada squads emerged on each side of the enemy rear, presenting a hail of rounds from a different vantage point. Grenada launched another 80 Raptors. These split into 2, bearing towards positions that supported both of Columbia's fighting squads. Within a couple of minutes, the encircling Boots fleet was shooting at the superior force, which was now on the defensive. But the enemy returned volleys at a similar rate. The flickers, streaks, and detonations from exchanged salvos of weapons fire resembled a nighttime fireworks display, lighting up the battlefield like a bright summer day. There was a sudden fusion flare as the Minneapolis from the Columbia Group went up like an exploding star. Then the Cleveland from the Grenada Group exploded. Boots had lost 2 frigates in a matter of minutes. Bryant sent an urgent communiqué to his 2 commanders. Use of antimatter weapons is authorized. Bryant. He eyed all 4 squads, beginning to slowly yield to the opposing force, though they continued the barrages on their nemesis. Of course, their adversary would think they were winning the skirmish, but in reality the force was giving ground, to avoid damage from their own armaments. When a buffer zone of 100 kilometers had opened between Boots and its encircled opposition, each Columbia and Grenada group launched 2 missiles. Detonating like supernovae, each one of these weapons destroyed an enemy vessel in a series of 28 fusion flares much like those of the Minneapolis and Cleveland, filling the space with debris and wreckage of all types, each fragment following its own deadly trajectory. The remaining 5 vessels attempted to regroup, but Boots' fleet kept piling on the conventional fire, disabling one ship after another. As the brilliant flashes diminished, George could see the remnants of partial hulls coasting through the void, careening off each other in unpredictable ways, accompanied by an immense accumulation of flotsam and garbage, so integral to people's lives, and bodies that cluttered the entire battlefield. He tapped in new orders. Recover 1 or 2 complete enemy bodies and return them immediately to the Columbia. Bryant. Then added in reflection, it would not be bad to have 1 intact ship, too. He needed to begin an investigation of the invaders immediately. This had been a fairly major force. Forward. There are 492,421,386,728 citizens within the sovereign territories of the democratic government I work for. And of all those people, I am the one in the best position to access any information, no matter
Sample complete. Ready to continue?